So we talk about the 49ers. What's the latest you're hearing on Brandon Aiyuk? I know he has said publicly, hey, I think I'll be in a 49ers uniform, but they still can't get to a contract. I don't see how you pay him what he wants when you have the other receivers that you have on that 49ers roster. Now, if he's on a different team, he might be a number one receiver. With the 49ers, he's not. So how does that situation work out in your head?
All right. So, I'm on Sports Grid twice a week with Scott Farrell, and we spent a big chunk of one of our segments, and I kind of explained it. You hit on a little bit of it. If you put Brandon Aiyuk on the Bills, he's a top 3 NFL receiver. And by the way, if you talk to personnel people around the National Football League, they would all agree he's a top 10 talent Aiyuk. There's no question about it. I remember this is 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. I was at the Niners training camp, and I ran into one of the coaches there on defense. I said, "Wow, Aiyuk was great today." He goes, "What are you talking about? He does this to us every day in practice. Like, he's that good. He's that gifted. He's that talented." And Kyle Shanahan, and Aiyuk had to get on the same page. 3 years ago, Aiyuk, had to get himself together. But Brandon has been tremendous. He's a great receiver. Right now, he's on his 5th-year option at $14.124 million. Here's the problem, and you kind of alluded to it. I'll take it to another level. Yes, numbers-wise, you can't put him in the Justin Jefferson like stratosphere at $35 million a year. You can't do that. CeeDee Lamb could, because CeeDee Lamb has comparable numbers. It's not Aiyuk's fault. That's the thing. It's like, but you can't. You got it right. You can't justify giving him $35 million a year, or even AJ Brown's deal, or $32. Aiyuk was not their number one receiver. Now, we could debate by first target look and certain metrics, but the bottom line is look at the catch total overall. And I'm a huge Brandon Aiyuk fan, but my job is to call it down the middle. I cover 32 teams, not one in particular, all the time. It's just I look at everything. And I know how contract negotiators think, and it's hard to justify. To me, he's around $30 million.
Yeah.
Would I play now? The Niners may, when a push comes to shove, they may move their number up to, and this would be fair. Go to Jalen Waddle's contract's really good. He has a great structure. His agent did a very good job. $28.25 million a year. The structure is really strong. That to me is the fairest contract. Again, if they traded him, you can make a case to pay him $32 million a year, like AJ Brown's getting. Absolutely.
What's the chances of him getting traded, Adam? What I mean, could this happen? We see trades all the time during training camp, but I'm wondering if there's a team out there, right? You want that last piece, you need that wide receiver. Anybody that you think would be a good target for the 49ers to talk to?
Well, see, it depends. You always have to look at the cap and where clubs are. Not that cash is always more important than cap, but you also have to see what how your contracts are structured. Like, for instance, I brought up the Bills now for a year with us, not a year, about 9 months. They just drafted Keon Coleman to be their X receiver. That's a single side receiver. They're not deep enough there. They need more help at receiver. But they're paying Curtis Samuel some decent coin. I mean, it would make sense from a need standpoint. But remember, they just moved Stephon Diggs' contract to Houston. I don't know if they want to take on that type of cash now. I know there's nothing to substantiate this. But there's been rumors, just internet rumors from fans on message boards and on social media about the Steelers and Aiyuk. Well, here's the thing. Yes, Pickens is a stud. No question about it. They just drafted Roman Wilson, who they want to be an outside starting receiver. We could debate whether he should be. He's more of an inside receiver, I think, at this point. But they have no depth to speak of. They don't have any developed depth. They could certainly use another receiver. But the question would be, is Pickens is more of an X receiver, and so is Aiyuk. So I don't know that it would work that way, and Pickens has got to get the football. And eventually, by the way, in fact, the Steelers could pay Pickens after the season concludes. He'll have played 3 seasons, which is the rule. You got to play 3 seasons if you're drafted to get your contract extended. But that's a team to watch. You never know. I remember talking to the Raiders. I'm talking a week before Khalil Mack was traded. I don't want to say they told him he wouldn't be traded. I mean, just the conversations you have with people privately.
Yeah.
And then Gruden got frustrated because he had personnel control. He said, "Get him off our roster." Because Gruden got bad information. He thought that Mack was going to hold out into the season. He was not going to do that.
Yeah.
And that that didn't work out like they thought. But
and injuries happen too, right? I mean, even in camp, your situation, if you're a team in contention and you lose your top guy,
it's another one.
you might want to go get somebody, right?
By the way, leverage. Okay, let's go to 2016 when Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, used leverage against the Vikings. They lost their quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, and they knew that they had to make a move, and they traded for Sam Bradford. The Eagles drafted Carson Wentz, so they were motivated. Although it's funny talking to them then, they really didn't want to bring Carson Wentz along as fast as they did, but they knew, like, you know what, he's got to play. Let's take our lumps. And he had a good rookie season, but you're right. So think about it. Aiyuk now is under contract. Okay, the cash is fully guaranteed, over $14 million. He's obviously underpaid. He's a tremendous talent. Unless Aiyuk, and I know clubs do this, and I just mentioned the Gruden situation, and cover this business over 25 years. I know teams get nervous if they think a guy's going to hold out into the season, which rarely happens, by the way. Guys don't like missing paychecks.
Yeah.
But let's extrapolate. We're not saying it's going to happen, but what if it did? Well, let's look at their recourse. They just drafted Ricky Pearsall, which was a surprise, by the way. I was expecting corner. They got their corner the second round. They got Samuel. They just brought back Juwan Jennings on a very nice backup deal. Really good deal, by the way, for Jennings. And we know McCaffrey's going to get the football. Kittle's going to get the football. I think they could handle it. But here's the thing, though. When you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you probably want to do it one more year, and then you could tag and trade, which is allowed. You could tag and put the franchise tag on him next year, and then trade him to the team. And obviously, he would get his new deal. You're not trading for a player off a tag and not extending him. We're just extrapolating what could happen, folks.
Sure.
But yeah, there are a lot of machinations here. But I feel bad for Aiyuk because he's so gifted. I thought you set this up very well. It's not his fault. He's just a victim of a situation where Samuel Pearsall is going to have to eventually play. Kittle, McCaffrey, Jennings. And by the way, they're more of a 12 personnel team. They don't play a lot of 3 receivers.
Right.
So you don't, but Aiyuk's is better. They don't have anyone who could replace that body type and his explosion.
Right. And you can't blame any of these guys for thinking about their career and saying, hey, if I'm wasting, quote unquote, wasting years here where I'm not getting the ball as much because there's just only one football, you can't get it around to everybody all the time, then obviously you can understand him either wanting the contract or moving on and going somewhere where he can play more. So it's going to be fascinating to watch that and see what happens.